The lamp in the mist, revelation of energy mastery. Imagine for a moment that your mind is no longer bound by haste or confusion, but moves in harmony with stillness, clarity, and trust. In a noisy world where countless opinions collide, there remains an eternal truth. Energy does not merely surround you, energy responds to you. Between the vast sky and the silent chamber of the soul lies a bridge not made of stone, but of light and ancient wisdom inviting you to cross. Some words are not born to inform, but to transform, not to explain, but to awaken. Let your breath slow down like morning mist settling upon still waters. Each thought is a spark, each emotion a quiet wave expanding outward. You are not a helpless observer standing apart from the universe. You are the instrument through which the song of creation takes form. The law of attraction does not listen to empty words, it hears the vibrational signature you carry within. When your thoughts align with what you truly desire, when your emotions resonate with the tone of your heart, reality bends itself to the shape of the essence you emit. The ancient masters called this the discipline of the inner world. They passed it on in silence, not to conceal, but to honor the power. For approaching it with greed gives birth to shadows, while receiving it with reverence opens renewal. The words you speak are living decrees. The emotions you hold are magnetic currents. The thoughts you repeat are blueprints for tomorrow. Energy mastery does not demand force. It requires harmony. Resist and you stir chaos. Flow and you ride the eternal tide with a grace unknown before. So now, take half a step inward. Drop your shoulders. Loosen your forehead and neck. Imagine a stream of light, thin as silk yet strong as steel, flowing from the crown of your head through your heart and across every cell. Call that stream peace. Try a small shift. Instead of asking why life does not listen to you, ask what you are broadcasting to life. Not later, but now. Not elsewhere, but within you. Not through noise, but through the authority of stillness. Practice opening the gate, close your eyes, and take 3 slow, even breaths. At the end of each breath, whisper gently into the silence, energy responds to me. At the end of the next, say, my thoughts weave tomorrow. On the last, say, I allow the good current to flow through me. Do not try to feel something grand. Simply allow a softer tone to enter the space within your chest. Trust that this small permission is enough to turn the river. From here, the journey begins, not through tense effort, but through the returning memory of the soul. Whisper beneath every thought. In a small riverside town lived a merchant named Chester. He lived among complaints as naturally as breathing. The sun rose too early and disturbed his sleep. The afternoon wind blew hard and toppled his goods. Customers were demanding and fellow traders were stingy. He believed life was unfair, and life returned to him exactly what he believed. When he complained about slow deliveries, the goods arrived late indeed. When he suspected dishonest customers, deceitful ones appeared. Reality was merely a faithful mirror, reflecting the sounds within him. One morning, so weary that even his own complaints sounded dull, Chester paused by the window. Sunlight touched the table, warm and gentle. He took a deep breath and, without knowing why, whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for the light that still shines." From then on, each morning he found one small thing to be grateful for, even when nothing seemed special. A cup of warm water, a bird's song, the smile of a passing child. At first it was only a habit, but soon his words of gratitude began to carry a heartbeat. Strangely, as his tone changed, the world softened too. The delivery man came earlier, customers returned, and someone even offered him small gifts. When his heart shifted frequency, everything adjusted in harmony. Not far away lived a weaver named Mabel. She did not complain or ask for anything. She simply offered silent blessings along the path to the market. Bless the baker's bread to rise crisp. Bless the children to play joyfully. Bless even the hungry cat to find food. She expected nothing in return, only felt her heart expand. Then life began to weave miracles into her days. Strangers helped her carry goods. Loyal customers introduced her to distant merchants. Heavy rain came, but her work stayed safe. The energy she sent out returned amplified, like a song echoing back from the mountain walls. Their stories teach that the universe does not understand the language of complaint, it only understands the frequency we send. Gratitude is the melody of abundance. Resentment is the note of lack. When you are grateful, you add nothing new, you simply tune your instrument to the harmony of goodness already present. And when that melody rises, life sings along. Try it tonight. Before sleeping, find a quiet corner. Take 3 deep breaths, letting each draw you into the present. Say in silence, "My thoughts are touching tomorrow." Feel the words not in your mind but in your chest. Then say, "I allow gratitude to guide my frequency." Let the sentence dissolve like warmth, spreading through your body. And before you close your eyes, I want to ask you this. If tomorrow only reflects your final thought tonight, what would you choose to send into it? Thank you for listening, for your presence makes this current of energy complete. The weight of resistance. Amid the crowded city and the rush of traffic lived a young woman named Ethel, who believed that if she worked twice as hard as everyone else, she would be recognized and promoted. Every morning she arrived earliest and left last. She checked every report dozens of times, losing sleep over the smallest details. She lived in the rhythm of fear, fear of mistakes, fear of being forgotten, fear of not being enough. She placed all her worth in the eyes of others. And then something strange happened. No matter how hard she worked, every door stayed closed. Those promoted were the ones who tried less. Her proposals were repeatedly rejected, and praise grew rare. She did not realize she was fighting against the very current that nourished life itself. One afternoon, sitting before her computer, Ethel felt her hands tremble. She had no strength left to type another word. In her shallow breaths, she realized her body was crying for help. She stepped away from the desk, walked outside, and let the golden light touch her face. In the silence, she heard her heartbeat, her breathing, and the soft rustle of leaves. A thought whispered within, if water is clenched, it slips away. If wind is held, it stills. She understood then that what trapped her was not the lack of effort, but the absence of surrender. The next day, she tried something different. Instead of pushing to prove herself, she smiled, completed her work, and stopped. She left space between tasks, allowing herself to breathe. To her surprise, people around her began to cooperate more easily. Her boss spoke to her kindly for the first time. A project once dismissed was suddenly revived. When she stopped pushing, the current found its own way. It was much like the story of Raymond, a man who had spent years battling his own body. He collected medicines, followed strict diets, and fought each symptom as if it were an enemy. Yet health kept slipping away. One day, too tired to fight, Raymond sat still, watching sunlight tremble across his shaking hands, and smiled. He decided to stop fighting life. When he was in pain, he rested. When hungry, he ate what he enjoyed. When sad, he walked and let the tears fall. No more resistance, no more self-blame. And then the miracle began. His body slowly recovered. Sleep returned, his breath deepened, his skin glowed, and laughter filled his home. The universe follows an unchanging law. Where there is blockage, energy breaks through. Where there is openness, energy flows in. You cannot grasp water and keep it. You can only open your hand and let it pass through. When you resist, you emit the frequency of fear and lack. When you surrender, you send out the signal of trust and flow. It is within this permission that miracles begin. Try standing before a mirror in the morning and ask yourself, what am I holding on to? Is it a result, a person, a perfect image? Imagine releasing those threads, letting your shoulders drop, your heart lighten, and a stream of light flow from the crown of your head through your entire body. Feel it like warm water washing through every cell, carrying away heaviness and leaving space for new breath. Practice this each morning as sunlight touches your window. Raise your palms upward and take a deep breath. Imagine receiving a radiant golden stream flowing from the sky through your hands into your heart. Whisper softly, I receive the flow I cannot resist. As you exhale, feel that light spreading through you, dissolving all tension, all effort, all demand. Let it drift away like dry leaves on a river. Repeat several times until you feel light as air. Ethel no longer longed for titles. Raymond no longer cared whether he was completely healed. They both learned a simple yet profound lesson. Life does not ask for proof, it only asks for presence. When you stop trying to control, you open the door for the natural magic of life to do its work. If you are still listening, leave a small sign to show you are part of this journey. Right below, I am ready to change, or simply the number 1. It is not a ritual. It is a declaration that you are ready to release the wheel and let the intelligent current of the universe carry you home. Thank you for listening, for in the moment you let go, the world becomes a little lighter. The echo of desire. In a bustling city where everyone chased their dreams, lived a young man named Vernon. Every morning as he stepped out, his mind carried a long list of wants: money, fame, status, love. He recited affirmations and surrounded his room with vision boards, yet deep inside, fear of lack still ruled. He told his friends he believed in abundance, but at night he feared unpaid bills and losing his job. He spoke of plenty, but his heart beat in fear. The universe did not listen to his words, it listened to his belief, and what he believed was lack. So money kept slipping away, opportunities kept hiding, and dreams stayed just out of reach. One afternoon, sitting by the window watching the rain, Vernon remembered his childhood. Back then, he could spend hours playing with a few pebbles and still laugh with joy. He never thought of scarcity because his heart was full. The memory made him smile and realize he had forgotten how to be grateful for small things. The next day, he tried something new. When paying for his coffee, he smiled and said, "Thank you." When receiving the electricity bill, he whispered, "I am lucky to have light and warmth." At first, his gratitude felt forced, but soon it brought a softer feeling, lighter, warmer, as if the universe leaned closer to him. Vernon's story reached Harriet, a woman in the same neighborhood who had lived in scarcity. She looked at her empty account and believed her life would never improve. Then one day she heard someone say that wealth begins not with the money in your wallet, but with the feeling inside. She decided to try. Each morning she counted the small coins in her purse, touching each one with gratitude as if they were seeds of a future harvest. She smiled when paying for coffee, thanked her bills for proving she could afford her life. Slowly, miracles unfolded. Forgotten payments were returned. An old friend connected her to a new project. Small opportunities lined up. She understood that the universe does not respond to desire, it responds to expectation. When she wished, she emitted the energy of lack. When she believed, she emitted the energy of having. Desire is an echo that resounds in an empty cave. The louder it calls, the clearer it reveals the void. Faith is a song in a valley full of sound. The more it sings, the more new echoes are born. When you hope for something, out of fear of not having it, you push it away. When you believe in something as if it already exists, you invite it closer. The energy of the universe is not persuaded by pleading, but attracted by certainty. So try this practice. When dawn touches your window, pause before rising. Take 3 deep breaths and softly say in your mind, "I expand what I expect." Feel the air moving through your lungs, like light filling every space. Imagine each cell opening, carrying the message that you are ready to receive. In that moment, you are no longer asking, but joining the flow of life. Like a farmer who trusts the harvest will come, you do not dig up the seed each day. You simply trust and tend the soil of your soul. In the days that follow, notice the smallest changes: a smile from the barrister, a friend reaching out, a new opportunity arriving like a gentle breeze. Each time goodness comes, whisper, "Thank you," not to ask for more, but to remind yourself that the current is flowing. Remember, desire is born from lack. Expectation is born from knowing you already have. Vernon learned that wealth is not about how much he earns, but about the energy he carries when thinking of money. Harriet discovered that gratitude not only changes finances, but transforms how she feels about herself. And you can experience it too. Right now, within you, there is a frequency called abundance. Just 1 minute of silence and one sincere thank you can shift your energy completely. When night falls, before closing your eyes, remember this phrase: "I expand what I expect." Say it slowly. Feel your body soften, your mind grow still. Let the words sink into your heart like seeds settling in moist earth. Tomorrow, when light returns, the world will answer you differently. because you have changed the song you send out. Desire is only the echo of lack. Expectation is the voice of creation. And you, the one reading these words, have the power to choose which voice will sing within your mind. The invisible magnet of the energy you radiate. In the Misty City mornings lived a man named Clyde. He worked hard and treated people kindly, yet deep inside carried a quiet loneliness. Each night when he returned to his small apartment, he sighed and whispered, "No one cares about me." He said it so often that it became a sad song playing endlessly in his mind. Each repetition spread like a signal from a radio tower, touching the energy around him and building an invisible wall. Those who wished to approach felt a faint chill in the air and unknowingly stepped back. Clyde never realized that his belief in loneliness was shaping the frequency of separation. One rainy afternoon, Clyde caught his reflection in the mirror. He saw a weary face and tired eyes. In that moment, he remembered his younger days, when he laughed freely with friends, when the world felt full of connection. A question surfaced: what made me stop loving? He found no answer, but he knew he wanted to change. That evening, he turned off the lights, sat in silence, placed his hand on his chest and whispered, "I open my heart to love." No one heard him, but the universe did. From that day, he began with small shifts. When his neighbor greeted him, he smiled instead of nodding stiffly. When a coworker needed help, he offered his hand without waiting for thanks. Within weeks, the walls around him seemed to melt. A friend called unexpectedly. A coffee meeting lasted longer, and Clyde felt something warm returning to him. In a quiet town far away lived a woman named Mildred. For years, her life felt like a loop of familiar faces and gray days. One morning, seeing a wildflower bloom by the roadside, she thought, "If this flower can bloom here, perhaps my soul can too." From then on, she tended a small garden in front of her home, but what she truly cultivated was the light within. Each day, she sat still for 10 minutes, breathed deeply, and spoke gently to herself, "I am enough. I am worthy. I am loved." She did not pray for someone to love her. She loved herself enough to no longer feel lack. And then magic unfolded. An old friend visited. Her neighbor offered to share work. Strangers smiled as they passed. Mildred was no longer searching for love. She became love. Their stories reveal an unfailing truth. The universe does not respond to words. It responds to vibration. Each person is a broadcasting tower. If you emit the frequency of fear, you attract situations that strengthen fear. If you emit the frequency of peace, you draw in what supports peace. The language of energy is not sound, but emotion. Everything you nurture inside, whether sorrow or joy, is being transmitted as a signal into space. Science calls it resonance, the ancients called it karma, the wise call it reflection. In truth, it is one principle. What is within determines what appears without. When you realize you are the radiant center, you no longer chase the light, for the light begins to shine from you. One evening, Clyde looked into the mirror and smiled for the first time in years. He whispered, "I am no longer lonely." The words were no longer a forced affirmation, but a new truth taking root. The next morning, he helped his neighbor fix a door. They laughed together, and warmth spread like sunlight after rain. Across town, Mildred received a thank you letter from someone who had once grown distant. They never knew each other, yet together they created a new frequency, the frequency of connection. Try giving yourself a moment like theirs tonight. Stand before the mirror. Do not rush to judge your reflection. Look into your eyes until your heartbeat slows. Silently say, "I vibrate with love, and so I am drawn to love." No one needs to hear it. Only you need to feel it. Let the warmth spread through your body as if standing within a field of soft light. When you truly feel those words, you have tuned yourself to the infinite energy field, and all that matches will find you. Clyde and Mildred are mirrors of the same lesson. You could be the third. Observe yourself. What frequency are you sending out? Is it tension and isolation, or calm and compassion? The answer is not in what you say, but in the feeling you carry when you enter a room. The world responds not to your appearance, but to your energy. So each morning before stepping outside, pause for a moment and imagine a clear light surrounding you. See it as the magnetic field of kindness, where everyone who meets you feels peace. As you move through the world, that field expands, and you will notice that goodness always finds its way to those who radiate it. When night falls, remember this practice. Stand before the mirror, look into your eyes, breathe deeply, and say, I am a magnet of love because I vibrate with love. Feel every cell in your body lighting up. Do not force belief, simply feel. In that moment, you are tuning your frequency, and the outer world will slowly shift to match the music you are creating. Before we end, I want to ask you this. If the energy you emit is the magnet that shapes your entire life, what scent do you wish that magnet to carry, fear or love? Keep the answer in your heart or write it below. Thank you for being here, for your presence is part of the expanding current of love flowing through this world. The seed of attention. In the gentle northern hills lived a woman named Cora, in a small house hidden beneath green trees. Each morning before sunlight touched her window, she awoke with old memories. Sitting by her wooden table, hands around a cold cup of tea, she replayed every moment of failure. If only I had not invested in that deal. If only I had not trusted that person. Those memories were like vines. Each time watered by her attention, they grew another ring. She did not realize she was tending the garden of her past with tears and time. Day by day, in the soil of her mind, dry flowers of sorrow sprouted again, crowding out the tender seeds of hope. One morning, as Cora stepped into her garden, she saw a wildflower blooming among the dry grass. No one had planted it or cared for it, yet it stood reaching for sunlight, fragile yet strong. She bent down and touched its petal, and something stirred within her. She asked herself, if this flower can grow from barren soil, why can't I? That question lit a forgotten corner of her heart, the corner of faith. That night, for the first time in years, Cora did not dwell on the past. She opened a notebook and wrote 3 things she was grateful for that day: the bird's song, the scent of tea, and the little flower in her garden. The next day she wrote 3 more, then 3 more again. Soon the pages were filled with proof that her life was more than sadness. Each line became a seed planted in the garden of her mind. As her attention shifted from lack to abundance, the season within her changed. She began to notice more flowers, more laughter, more people bringing small joys to her life. In the same village lived a merchant named Wilbur, known for his complaints and harsh temper. One day, as he passed Cora's garden, he heard her softly singing while watering the plants. The sound was light as wind, yet it made him stop. What are you singing that sounds so peaceful? He asked. Cora smiled. I sing for the seeds that are growing, both in this soil and in my heart. Her words stayed with him for days. That night he tried the same. Sitting by a small oil lamp, he recalled 3 good things that happened. A customer smiled, a shipment arrived on time, and dinner was delicious. He was surprised to feel warmth return to his chest. He realized goodness had always been near. He had simply never looked. From then on, he continued the habit every night until it became a ritual. Gradually, his business flowed smoother. His workers were happier. Even the rain seemed gentler. People say energy flows where attention goes. The mind is like a gardener carrying a watering can through the garden. If you water weeds, weeds grow. If you water flowers, flowers bloom. The universe is not biased. It only nourishes what you choose to tend. When you feed sadness, sadness spreads. When you nurture joy, joy becomes the climate of your life. Cora learned that painful memories do not need to be buried or erased. They simply fade when left without attention. And the good things, even as small as grains of sand, when acknowledged with gratitude, multiply into mountains. Wilbur learned that thank you is not just polite speech, but an act of energy transformation. Each time he said thank you, a fine beam of light touched the surrounding field of energy and called goodness back to him. Practice this. Each morning as the sun rises over the hills, find one thing you already have and love it. It might be a cup of water, your breath, or a ray of sunlight filtering through the curtain. Whisper, I water this with my attention. Then take a deep breath. Imagine the light moving through your breath into your heart and radiating outward. Throughout the day, return to it. When tired, remember your breath. When afraid, remember the sunlight. When sad, remember the cup of water. That is how you keep the seeds in your soul watered, and the world will mirror the garden you grow. At night before sleeping, write down 3 small things you are grateful for. They need not be grand, only true. Each line you write is a flower sown into the night. As you sleep, your mind becomes a garden, and by morning you will walk into it with lighter steps. If you are still listening, ask yourself, what are you watering each day, fear or faith, loss or gratitude? Choose a new seed starting today, for your energy is the soil from which everything in your life will grow. Thank you for listening, for your presence is making the world's garden greener. The bend of the river. In a small village by the riverside lived a woman named Lenadine. For many years, her life moved slowly and safely. Every morning, she followed the same path to the well, greeted the same neighbors, and returned home to the same familiar chores. She kept everything within boundaries, disliked change, feared risk, and believed peace meant standing still. When others discussed building a new market, she shook her head. When traders from distant towns brought strange goods, she closed her door. Lenadine wanted her life to be like a lake, without ripples, but she forgot that still water turns murky when it no longer flows. One year, heavy rains collapsed the village well. The old water source was gone, and people had to dig anew in another place. Floods swept away old houses, friends moved elsewhere, and Lenadine stood amid the ruins with nothing left to hold on to. She felt betrayed by life. She had lived kindly and carefully, yet everything was taken. Many nights she sat by the river, filled with anger and fear, until one evening, as moonlight shimmered on the water, she noticed something strange. Though the floods had passed, the river still flowed, clear and steady, with its own direction. She suddenly understood. Peace is not the absence of change, but the trust that life continues to carry us forward. From that day, Lenadine began to change. She stopped mourning the lost well and helped others dig the new one. She learned to fetch water differently, to trade at the new market. The more she stepped beyond the familiar, the lighter she felt. Change was no longer an enemy, but a river leading her to new lands. There she met people she had never known, heard stories she had never heard, and felt young again. She realized that only when we stop clinging can life expand. Not far away lived a man named Gerald, once a wealthy merchant. After a crisis, he lost nearly everything. He tried to recover by rebuilding exactly what he had before, same location, same goods, same methods. But each time he restarted, the world had changed. Customers were different, and he failed again. One day, exhausted, he gave up trying to recreate the past. He began listening to the new current of his time. He learned online trade, opened a small store with new products, and partnered with younger people. Strangely, when he no longer held on to the old, fortune returned. More clients came, and joy returned as well. Gerald understood that when we allow the river to guide us, it leads us to deeper, fresher waters. Life moves through motion. When we resist change, we block the bloodstream of the universe. Every challenge and every loss is only a bend in the river. And if we keep going, the flow will lead us to the sea. Life does not punish us by changing direction. It only asks if we can be soft enough to bend. A rigid branch breaks, but a willow that bows survives the storm. One morning, Lenadine stepped to the river, placed her hand on her chest, and whispered, "I trust the bend of the river." She closed her eyes, listened to the water's rhythm, and felt her heartbeat matching its flow. For the first time in years, she was not afraid of the future. She simply wanted to move with it. From then on, whenever life shifted, she repeated that phrase as a prayer. Soon the villagers began saying it too whenever hardship came. Trust the bend of the river. Have you ever feared change like Lenadine? Or tried to hold on to the past like Gerald? How many times have you mistaken stability for safety when in truth it was the home of stagnation? Change is not an enemy. It is the greatest teacher. Each time life moves you, remember the water only carries you because something better lies ahead. Practice this. Find a quiet place. Place your hand on your chest and take 3 deep breaths. With each breath, Imagine a river of light flowing through you, washing away heaviness and filling you with ease. Then softly say, I trust the bend of the river. Keep it as a rhythm, as the music of your morning. Whenever fear or worry arises, pause, breathe, and say it again. Gradually you will feel that trust become true strength. And if you are still here listening, leave a small sign so I know you are part of this journey. Write, I am ready to change, or simply the number 1. Each word is a drop of water, and when thousands of drops meet, they become the great river that carries us back to faith. Thank you for listening, for your presence makes the flow of this story complete. The Hidden Warehouse. In a seaside town where small boats rocked like the slow breaths of the ocean lived a woman named Edna. Each morning before sunlight reached her window, she sat at an old wooden table counting the coins in her small jar. She counted again and again, afraid that the slightest mistake would make her already small savings vanish. Only this much left, and soon it will be gone, she murmured, like a mantra of fear. To her, the world was a pie too small for everyone. If someone received more, her portion must shrink. So she clutched, she hoarded, and inside her scarcity grew like a shadow, swallowing the light. Edna did not realize that by closing her heart, she also closed the doorway to the flow of the universe. She thought she was saving, yet she was locking the movement of abundance itself. Like a boat afraid of waves that never dares to sail, she was stranded in still waters. One morning at the harbor, she saw a man preparing his old weathered boat for the sea. His vessel looked poorer than hers, yet his face carried a calm smile. When Edna asked if he feared the sea might run out of fish, he laughed. The sea never runs out. Only fearful hearts run dry. The words pierced deep into her mind like an arrow finding the darkest corner. The man was Warren, a fisherman known not for the size of his nets, but because he never returned empty-handed. When others stayed ashore, fearing storms, he sailed. When people complained of scarce fish, he shared his catch with the poor. And the sea seemed to love him for it, for he always returned with more than he hoped. He believed the universe was a limitless spring, not a well with a bottom. When we hold back, he said, the water stops flowing. When we give, it pours again. Warren's story lingered in Edna's thoughts. That night she stared at the coins in her hand. But this time they were not symbols of safety. They were proof of fear. She thought of all the times she had refused to help, out of worry. She remembered when she wanted to buy a gift for a friend but didn't, when she wished to offer a meal but held back. She realized she had treated life like a stingy companion, and she decided to do differently. The next morning, Edna took a small portion of her money to the market, bought a few loaves of bread, and left them on the doorstep of an elderly neighbor. She didn't sign her name, didn't want anyone to know, but inside her, warmth spread like sunlight through cold air. The next day at the harbor, the fisherman smiled and handed her a bag of fresh fish. Someone has already paid for you, he said. She was surprised, unsure who it was. Perhaps the universe, she thought, repaying her in its own way. From then on, whenever fear crept back, she remembered Warren's words, the sea never runs out. She began to see life as that sea. No matter how many boats sail, the water remains full, and fish still thrive. She understood that lack never comes from the outer world, but from inner belief. A mind that believes in scarcity will see only limits, while a heart that trusts in abundance will find new doors opening. The world moves through circulation. Just as blood must flow and wind must move, energy must also travel. When you shut your heart out of fear of losing, the current stops and life begins to wither. But when you trust and open, energy instantly finds its way back, bringing new forms of blessings. A smile, an opportunity, a friend each is the universe's way of saying, I am still abundant. Practice this. Each night before sleep, place your hand on your chest and say, I live in the infinite warehouse of goodness. As you speak, imagine a great door opening within you. Behind it lies light, the treasures of peace, love, opportunity, and abundance. Step into it with your mind, breathe deeply, and feel the air of plenty filling every corner. If you do this nightly, you will soon notice the difference, not because of magic, but because your energy has changed direction. Edna never became the richest in town, but she became the freest. She no longer counted money with fear, but with gratitude. When she gave to others, it felt like sending a letter to herself, knowing that somehow the current would return. And indeed it always did. If you are still listening, remember you do not live in a world of limits. You live in a universe that never runs dry. Every good thing you give is a ticket for another blessing to return. So today, will you hold back or share? Keep your answer in your heart, for that is the energy you will harvest tomorrow. Thank you for listening, for by simply believing in abundance, you have already made the world a little richer. The sacred exchange, amid the noise of the market, where shouts and the clinking of coins filled the air, there was a jeweler named Floyd. His shop was famous for its exquisite pieces, yet his face rarely carried a smile. Each time a customer entered, he counted the money carefully, examined every coin, his eyes full of suspicion. He lived in constant fear that his fortune might vanish at any moment. Though his wallet was heavy, his heart was empty. He believed life was a game where another's gain meant his loss, that to give was to lose. That fear made his hands tremble whenever he had to pay, and his heart grew cold as iron. One evening, while closing his shop, Floyd noticed a beggar boy standing by the street, thin hands outstretched, eyes shining with faint hope. Floyd was about to turn away when a voice whispered in his mind, "If you fear losing, you will never receive." He didn't know why he heard it, but his hand moved on its own, taking out a coin and placing it in the boy's palm. When the coin left his hand, something inside him fell too, light as air. That night he slept better than he had in years. The next morning he opened his shop, and something unexpected happened. 2 new customers came in and bought jewelry at full price without bargaining. The words from last night echoed in his mind. For the first time, Floyd questioned his old belief. Perhaps the universe does not punish giving. It rewards the trust in abundance. Floyd's story spread through the market and reached a woman named Agnes, who owned a small bakery at the corner. Unlike Floyd, Agnes gave freely. She offered warm bread to hungry children and shared leftovers with her sick neighbor. Many called her foolish, saying kindness does not pay the bills. But Agnes simply smiled. When I give, I feel alive. And indeed, her bakery was always full. People came not just for the bread, but for the invisible fragrance that radiated from her heart, the scent of kindness. One day, Floyd visited Agnes. "Aren't you afraid?" he asked, "afraid that giving will leave you empty?" Agnes wiped her hands and looked at him gently. "Do you see the blood in your body? It must flow for you to live. Keep it still and you die." The words silenced Floyd for a long time. He began to see that circulation is the law of life. Like blood through veins, wind through forests, and rain cycling between sky and earth. When energy stops moving, life stops too. Floyd decided to live differently. Each day he set aside a small amount to help others. Sometimes he bought bread from Agnes for strangers. Sometimes he repaired an old woman's jewelry for free. Each time he gave, he felt a strange joy, not the pride of charity, but the peace of release. Within months, his shop became busier than ever, not because he advertised, but because his new energy spread outward. He smiled more, and people were drawn to that smile. The universe works in a perfect circle. When you send out love, love returns. When you share resources, resources find their way back. Energy never disappears. It only transforms, moves, and multiplies. Those who hold on in fear cannot prosper, for they freeze the flow. Those who open their hearts never go without, for they merge with the endless current. Giving and receiving are 2 ends of the same breath, inseparable. One morning, Floyd looked around his shop and noticed everything seemed different. The same jewelry, yet it shone warmer, brighter. He smiled, thinking of the coins he once feared to lose, now turned into someone's happiness. He understood that true wealth does not live in a safe, but in a heart that allows movement. Practice this. Find a coin, a bill, or anything of value to you. Place it in your palm, close your eyes, and take a deep breath. Feel it as a seed of circulation, Whisper softly, "What I give will return." Sense the energy moving from your hand through your heart and out into the world. Then act, give, help, or share. It does not have to be large, only genuine. Then let life show you the rest. And when night comes, before sleep, place your hand on your chest and repeat, "What I give will return." That sentence opens the door to flow and reconnects you to life's rhythm. Now I ask you, what will you give today? A blessing, a smile, or a moment of forgiveness? Everything you release is a seed carried by the wind of the universe, and one day it will return, blooming as flowers in your life's garden. Thank you for listening, for even this act of listening is a form of giving. You are offering the world your presence, and trust me, the world will answer with something beautiful in return. The voice beyond fear. At the edge of a small village lived a woman named Dorothy in an old wooden house. Each morning, as the sun rose, instead of greeting the day with faith, she whispered dark prophecies. Maybe something bad will happen today. Maybe it will rain again. Maybe I will run into trouble. Those words were like thin threads weaving a web of fear around her life. Gradually, what she feared began to happen. Her garden was eaten by pests. Her customers stopped coming for bread, and her little house seemed soaked in the chill of unspoken worry. Dorothy did not know that every complaint, every fearful thought was a command she sent to the universe. The energy of fear has its own frequency, like a bell that calls in whatever vibrates the same. When she said, "I fear loss," the energy of loss began its journey to her doorstep like an old friend. The universe does not judge, it simply reflects what it hears. And what it hears is not the words, but the emotion behind them. One winter morning, standing by her window, Dorothy saw a neighbor's little boy learning to ride a bicycle. He fell again and again, but each time he stood up smiling, his lips red from the cold. No one had taught him not to fear. He just believed that falling was part of learning. The sight left Dorothy silent. She realized she had lived for years like someone riding through life with her hand locked on the brake. She was so afraid that she had forgotten how to live. That night by the fireplace, she tried something new. Instead of imagining misfortune, she spoke softly in her mind. "I am safe. I am protected." At first, the words felt foreign, like a stranger knocking at her door. But she repeated them slowly until her breath matched their rhythm, and strangely, she slept more peacefully that night. The next morning, she woke into an unusual stillness, as if the room had been cleansed of fear. Not far away, in the next valley, lived a carpenter named Milton. He had once been famous for his craftsmanship, but over time, his business declined because he worked in anxiety. He feared crooked cuts, harsh criticism, the thought that his skill was fading. That fear made his hands tremble and his work lose grace. One day, staring at the scattered wood on his floor, he remembered his father's words, "When you trust your hands, the wood will listen." He laughed, thinking wood could not hear, yet he felt a quiet urge to try. From that day, before starting any task, Milton placed his hands on the wood and whispered, "My hands know what to do." He stopped forcing. He simply worked in faith. And miracles happened. The stubborn pieces fit perfectly. His furniture was finer than before. Customers returned, and laughter filled his workshop. He understood that fear makes hands shake, but faith lets energy flow. When we trust, the universe responds. Fear is not an enemy. It is a signal reminding us we have forgotten our inner power. It does not come to punish. It comes to awaken. Each time you feel fear, you are being invited back to trust. You cannot destroy fear with logic, but you can dissolve it with awareness, just as darkness cannot be chased away, only replaced by light. The universe never answers trembling voices. It hears only the steady tone of the soul. When you say, "I trust," but your heart still quivers, the universe hears the quiver. When you whisper, "I am safe," with the pure faith of a child, the world reshapes itself to reflect that truth. That is why, in every age, those who trust completely are always the ones protected. Practice this. Whenever fear rises, do not run. Stand still, breathe deeply, and say slowly, "I welcome safety. I release the dark." Repeat until your breath grows calm and deep. Feel the air around you change color, warmer, brighter. You do not need to fight fear. Only withdraw your energy from it. When you stop feeding fear with attention, it fades like smoke under sunlight. Dorothy slowly learned to speak to herself in a gentler tone. Each morning, instead of imagining what could go wrong, she wrote one thing that made her feel safe: the sunlight, the birds, the roof above her head. Each line became an anchor to the present. And Milton taught his apprentices the mantra he used each day: my hands know, my heart believes. They laughed, thinking it was just a habit, but soon found their hands steadier too. If you are here now, pause for a moment. Remember the last time you felt afraid, maybe about work, health, or love. Now place your hand on your chest, breathe deeply, and whisper, I am safe. I am protected. Feel the air around you soften, your heart loosen. In that instant, you are speaking the language the universe understands, the language of trust. Fear cannot exist where light resides, and that light is not out there, it is within you. Thank you for being here, for each time you choose to speak in the voice of calm, you not only free yourself, you send a wave of peace into the fabric of life itself. The furnace of faith. In the quiet outskirts of a city lived a woman named Lucille in a small house filled with the smell of medicine and stacks of hospital papers. Every morning, the first thing she said upon waking was, I'm sick again. That sentence had become a ritual she didn't even notice. With each repetition, she carved another spell into the invisible wall surrounding her. Day after day, the wall thickened, and her room grew smaller. She went from doctor to doctor, yet no cure lasted. Lucille did not realize that her greatest illness was not in her body, but in her belief. One silent night, staring into the mirror, Lucille saw a stranger staring back, weary and frail, yet with a faint glimmer in her eyes, a hunger to live. She broke down in tears, and amid the sobs came a question. What would happen if I believed differently? A small question, yet powerful enough to spark a beginning. The next morning, instead of saying, I'm sick, she tried saying, my body is healing. At first, the words felt false, like singing a song she did not yet know by heart. But she kept repeating them. Every day she wrote the phrase in her notebook, pasted it on the mirror, on the door. Each time she read it, she tried to picture herself walking freely, breathing deeply. A week passed, then 2, then a month. Slowly, change began. She slept better, her appetite returned, her smile came back. No miracle happened, only faith quietly shifted direction, like a hidden flame glowing through a cold night. Not far away lived a man named Harvey, the owner of a small shop on the edge of failure. Each time a customer left without buying, he sighed. Times are bad, no one buys anything anymore. Each word was another hammer strike, driving the nails of pessimism into the coffin of opportunity. But when everything seemed lost, Harvey remembered his late father's words. The world mirrors what you believe, not what you want. He sat in thought and decided to live as if his store were already thriving. From that day on, he cleaned and rearranged his shop, replaced dim bulbs with bright ones, organized his shelves with care. He greeted customers with a smile, no longer haunted by fear of loss. Each morning he placed his hand on his chest and said, prosperity flows through my work. Passers-by began to linger, familiar faces returned, and within months his store revived. When you believe deeply enough, the world must rearrange itself to match the frequency of that belief. Lucille and Harvey possessed no magic, only the understanding of an ancient law. Energy follows belief. Belief is the mold cast in fire, and reality is molten metal poured into it. If the mold is shaped by fear, you forge fear. If it is shaped by faith, you forge miracles. Not luck, but the mathematics of the soul. Many confuse desire with belief. Desire sees what is missing. Belief knows it already exists somewhere and is on its way. Desire wavers. Belief stands firm. Desire says, I hope. Belief says, I know. The power lies in that difference. While the hopeful wait, the faithful move. Lucille learned that every word she spoke was a command to the universe. She replaced, I'm sick with, I am healing. I'm weak with, I am strong. Each new phrase was a brick rebuilding the house of her mind. And after some time, the words stopped being affirmations and became truth. She walked stronger, her skin glowed, and the light in her eyes spread through her being. Faith is not born from force, but from repetition. Each time you speak with conviction, you feed a flame within the furnace of your soul. However small, that fire can melt the steel of doubt. Keep it alive long enough, and reality itself begins to soften and reshape. That is why the ancients said, when faith is strong enough, even mountains move. Practice this. Each night before sleep, place your hand on your heart and say, "What I believe will take form." Repeat until the words no longer feel spoken, but breathed. Feel your heart warming like a furnace alive with fire. Picture doubts melting away like softened metal, leaving only the bright glow of faith. Sleep within that energy, and when you awaken, walk as one reborn. Harvey continued to prosper, but he no longer measured wealth by money. He understood that faith itself was his real treasure. And when people asked Lucille the secret of her recovery, she simply smiled and said, "I changed the story in my head." The simplicity of her answer made people laugh, yet within that laughter they saw the light of truth. If you are still here, right below, "I am ready to change," or simply the number one. It is not a comment, but a covenant with yourself. Because the moment you declare it, the energy of faith has already begun to move. Thank you for being here. For when you believe, the world begins to believe in you. The pattern of words. In a small house deep in the countryside lived a woman named Elsie. She was known throughout the village for her endless complaints. To everyone she met, she spoke of past misfortunes, ongoing struggles, and future disappointments. She often said, "Life has never been kind to me." Each sentence was like an invisible hammer striking against the door of her future. She thought she was only venting, but in truth, she was issuing commands to the universe. And the universe, honest to the point of cruelty, returned exactly what she declared. The more she complained, the more reasons she found to complain, as if each sorrowful word grew into a bitter tree. Her neighbors pitied her but avoided long conversations, afraid that her heavy energy might cling to them, until one day she met Norman, a man with the opposite habit. Norman lived simply, worked quietly, yet always spoke of what was good. When it rained, he said, "Wonderful, the trees are drinking deeply." When he failed, he said, "At least I learned something new." Elsie laughed, thinking him naive. But Norman replied, "I'm not naive. I'm choosing to shape my pattern with words." His answer left her speechless. Over time, she noticed that Norman seemed to attract good fortune. People liked working with him. Opportunities found him easily. One day she asked, "What's your secret?" He smiled. "The only secret is that I'm careful with what I say. Every word is a line of energy. It either builds a bridge or digs a hole." That night, Elsie lay awake reflecting. She realized she had never spoken of anything good. Even in happy moments, she added a shadow of worry. She decided to try differently. The next morning, when a neighbor greeted her, she replied, "It's a beautiful day." The words felt awkward, but she stayed with them. All that day, she trained herself to notice small blessings: a flower blooming, a kitten playing, a child laughing. That evening, she was surprised to feel lighter. No miracle had happened, only a shift in language. In the following days, Elsie continued her practice. Each time a complaint rose to her lips, she paused and replaced it with a neutral sentence, then gradually with a positive one. Every time she did, she felt the energy in her home change. The light seemed softer, the air easier to breathe. The universe was responding to the new pattern she was weaving. Meanwhile, Norman continued speaking what he called the language of creation. Each morning he told himself, "I am amazed by how opportunities find me." He wasn't trying to convince anyone. He was planting belief into the air. And indeed, a few days later, a large, unexpected contract arrived. Others called it luck, but he knew it was the natural response of energy. Language is the river that carries thought into the physical world. Every word you speak creates a frequency. If your words carry the tone of fear, they call in circumstances that make you afraid. If your words carry gratitude, they draw in reasons to be grateful. Each phrase you repeat becomes a pattern, and reality is the fabric woven from thousands of those patterns. Some say words vanish into the air, but they do not. They expand, reflect, and return, like echoes in a valley. That is why the ancients said, "Speak as if your words are seeds," because sooner or later you will walk through the garden they have grown. After months of practice, Elsie realized she had completely changed. People visited her more often, her work flowed better, and the strangest part was the silence inside her, no more voice of complaint. One day she smiled at her reflection and said, "Life is learning to be kind to me." And the universe, as honest as ever, responded by filling her day with gentle blessings. Practice this. Each morning before the world awakens, find a moment of stillness. Stand before the first light, breathe deeply, and say, "My words carve the path I walk." Feel the sound vibrate in your chest, spreading like waves. Choose your words carefully through the day. When you want to complain, say something true but hopeful. When you want to criticize, find what can be learned. When you want to fear, say, "I am learning courage." With every change of word, you change the direction of energy. Language is the map of the soul, and every word you speak is a marker on your journey. Do not speak by habit, speak with awareness. Let your words be commands of faith, not reactions of fear. When you understand this power, you will speak less, but each word will carry the weight of the universe. Before we end, take a minute to look within. What have you said about life today? Are you retelling the old story of fear or writing a new chapter of trust? If you are still here listening, pause and whisper softly, "I speak with light." Then leave within your heart or below this message a small sign, "I am ready to change," or simply the number 1. In that moment, you are not only speaking to me, you are speaking to the universe, declaring that you have begun to choose the language of creation. Thank you for being here, for your voice is the echo that is already making the world gentler, the law of the mirror. In the bustling market of a small town, there was a woman named Clara who sold fabric, her voice echoing through the stalls. Every morning as she opened her booth, she complained that people had become cold, customers rude, and friends uncaring, and indeed each day brought arguments, criticism, and cold glances. She believed the world was against her, not realizing that she herself was the one creating that world. Clara looked at others through the lens of judgment. She believed everyone carried hidden motives, that people would take advantage of her if given the chance. Those thoughts became a fogged glass over her eyes. She no longer saw the world as it was, only the reflection of her own mind. Every time she said people are unkind, she was really describing the hardness within herself. She didn't yet understand that the universe is a vast mirror, reflecting only what you radiate. One morning, while arranging her fabrics, a painter stopped by. His name was Homer, a man who traveled from town to town painting landscapes. He looked at her and asked, "Have you ever tried seeing others as yourself?" Clara frowned. "What do you mean?" Homer smiled. "If you see the world as cold, maybe something in you has grown cold too. And when you see warmth, it is because warmth is alive within you." Then he walked away, leaving his words to ripple through her thoughts like a drop of paint spreading in water. That night, Clara sat by a dim oil lamp and stared into the mirror. The yellow light revealed a weary face, eyes as stiff as stone. She realized how long it had been since she had truly smiled, how little light remained in her gaze. She sighed, and for the first time, instead of blaming the world, she whispered, "Maybe I am the one who made myself lonely." The next morning, when her first customer arrived, she tried to smile. It was clumsy, but real. The customer's eyes softened. She was surprised. The next time, she thanked someone who bargained with her. That person smiled back. And then something unexpected happened. There were no arguments that day, no harsh words. When she changed, the mirror of the world changed too. Word of her transformation reached Homer, and he returned to visit. Clara said, "I don't understand. How can a few smiles change an entire day?" Homer replied, "Because you weren't just smiling at others, you were smiling at yourself within them. The world only reflects the energy you send." He told her how, when he was younger, he had painted in many cities. Some seemed full of frowns, others full of smiles. But over time, He realized the difference wasn't the city, it was his heart. When he painted in fear, his art was gray and people were distant. When he painted in peace, the whole world appeared brighter. The principle is simple yet profound. Everything you experience outside is a mirror of what lives inside. When you resent, the universe reflects resentment. When you are grateful, it reflects gratitude. When you love, love returns. The mirror never chooses its image, it only responds honestly. If you want to change what you see, you cannot clean the mirror. You must change the face it reflects. Clara began a nightly ritual. Before bed, she stood before the mirror and said, "What I see is what I shine." At first, it was just a reminder, but over time, warmth grew inside her. People who once seemed cold now greeted her with ease. One day, a customer who had once scolded her returned with a small bouquet and said, "You look radiant today." Clara smiled, not caring whether it was luck or reflection, because deep down she knew her energy had shifted. Practice this each night. When the world grows quiet, stand before a mirror and say, "What I see is what I project." Look into your eyes without judgment or criticism. If you feel tired, offer yourself kindness. If you feel sad, whisper comfort. If you feel afraid, say, "I am here with you." Each time you do, your energy begins to heal. When your inner world softens, the mirror of life becomes clear. Remember, life is never wrong with you. It only returns what you send. When you shift your emotion, your reality shifts too. That is not magic, it is reflection. And if you are here now, try this simple act. Smile at yourself this very moment. Wherever you are, relax your face and whisper, "I see the light within me." If you wish, write below "I shine" or the number 1 to let me know you understand. Because the moment you acknowledge that light, the mirror of the universe begins to reflect something extraordinary, a more beautiful world born from you. The circle returns. In a small village along the hillside lived a woman named Ruth. She was known for her sharp tongue, a voice that could cut like a blade. No one escaped her criticism. If the neighbor's bread was underbaked, she mocked it. If someone's garden bloomed late, she scoffed. Even a laughing child in the street made her frown. "Too noisy," she would say. To Ruth, everything had a flaw. She believed that if she didn't point out what was wrong, the world would fall apart. But the more she spoke, the darker her life became. People avoided her, customers grew fewer, and she became the target of the same harshness she had sent out. She often sighed, "Why is everyone so critical?" never realizing she was receiving exactly what she had given. Not far away lived a carpenter named Eugene, a gentleman with a calm smile. Each morning as he went to the market, he greeted everyone warmly, eyes shining with kindness. He had an odd habit. Whenever he passed someone, whether friend or stranger, he silently said in his heart, "May you be at peace." He didn't do it for reward. He simply liked the feeling it brought. Over time, he noticed his life change. People who once ignored him now smiled. His work flowed easily, and help always seemed to find him at the right moment. At first, Ruth mocked his habit. "What good does blessing others do?" she said. Eugene smiled. "When I bless others, I am speaking to myself, because every energy I send must return." The words stayed with Ruth like an echo she couldn't quiet. That night she lay awake wondering, if energy truly comes back, then perhaps all the bitterness she had spoken over the years was now finding its way home to her. The thought made her shiver. The next morning, Ruth tried something different. When she saw her neighbor clumsily carrying water, she wanted to sneer, but stopped herself. Instead, she whispered silently, "May you be at peace." The words were light as wind, yet something softened inside her. That day, strangely, nothing upset her. The stranger even helped her carry goods. She was so surprised she nearly cried. Maybe the circle of energy was real. She began practicing daily, speaking kindly instead of criticizing, blessing instead of judging. At first her mouth trembled. After years of harshness, gentleness felt unnatural. But she persisted. Each kind word was like a stone placed on a dam, stopping the flood of negativity. Weeks passed, then months. People no longer spoke harshly around her. Neighbors greeted her again. Children came to her shop to buy bread. No one could explain what had changed, but Ruth knew she had changed the direction of her energy. The universe follows a simple rhythm, like breath. You inhale, you exhale, you give, you receive. Whatever you send must return, for no energy is ever lost. The words you speak, the thoughts you think, the emotions you carry, all move in a perfect circle and come back. It is not punishment, but the justice of resonance. If you plant flowers, you harvest fragrance. If you plant thorns, you harvest pain. The universe does not choose, you do. Eugene continued his quiet craft, but now with deeper faith. He believed that every act of goodness, no matter how small, sends ripples through existence. He once told Ruth that after fixing a door handle for an elderly woman, the next day he received the biggest order of his career. It wasn't coincidence, it was the circle returning. Every good deed is a stone dropped into a lake, its waves spreading and then coming home. Practice this. Each morning before you step out, breathe deeply and say, I send out what I wish to receive. Choose one feeling you want to experience today, peace, love, or joy. Then through each conversation and action, consciously send that feeling outward. When you talk, smile. When you work, do it with kindness. By evening, you will notice the world reflecting the same energy you offered. Ruth did the same. Each morning, she looked in the mirror and said, I send out gratitude, I will receive joy. Strangely, those who once annoyed her began to make her laugh. When someone spoke harshly, she didn't react. She simply whispered, I send you peace. The more she practiced, the gentler life became. She realized the circle doesn't just return what you send, it multiplies it. A small blessing could become an entire day of ease. A single kind act could turn into an unexpected opportunity. In the end, Ruth understood no one had ever truly made her suffer except the energy she herself released. And in that realization, she smiled a smile free of bitterness for the first time. Second practice at night, take a deep breath and say, I only send what I wish to return. Imagine a glowing circle of light before you. Each time you exhale, your words, thoughts, and feelings flow into that circle as beams of light. Each time you inhale, that light returns, carrying the energy you sent. If you send love, you breathe in peace. If you send compassion, you breathe in gentleness. Practice until this becomes the natural rhythm of your heart. Now, if you are here listening, ask yourself, what have you sent out today, a judgment or a blessing, a frown or a smile? The universe is listening and will echo exactly that. If you understand, hold in your heart or right below, I send out love. Because the moment you choose it, the circle begins to turn, and the light you release is already finding its way back to you. The still point. In an old town surrounded by hills lived a woman named Marjorie. She was intelligent, curious, and carried a dozen dreams in her mind at once. One day she wanted to learn painting. The next she dreamed of opening a cafe, then writing a book, teaching, gardening, traveling. Her mind was a sky full of fireworks, brilliant but chaotic. Each spark flared and faded, leaving smoke and emptiness behind. Though she was always busy, nothing was ever finished. She often sighed, I don't lack dreams, I just lack a miracle. But what she didn't know was that miracles appear only when energy gathers. One afternoon, wandering through an old library, she found a weathered book. On the first page were the words, scattered energy is wind, focused energy is fire. The sentence struck her still. She remembered everything she had started and abandoned, every dream that bloomed and died. Perhaps she had been living as wind, never once learning how to burn as fire. The next day she tried something new. She chose one thing, only one, to focus on. After thinking carefully, she chose painting, not because it mattered more, but because it was the only thing that brought her peace. She cleared a corner of her house, removed all distractions, and hung a sign that read, only one thing today. Each morning she lit a candle, took a deep breath, and painted in silence. At first her mind rebelled. Thoughts still rushed in all directions. But she persisted, returning again and again to her breath, her lines, her colors. A month passed, and she was amazed. The paintings began to carry something alive. The colors spoke of calm. Those who saw them said they felt peace just by looking. Marjorie realized something extraordinary. When she stopped trying to do everything, life began to work with her. Opportunities appeared, help arrived, and within her the fire began to burn steadily. Not far away lived a man named Howard, a herbalist who owned a small shop. He too had once scattered himself, chasing countless ideas, changing products every season, never moving forward. One day he met an old monk who asked, "Do you see the Sunday?" Howard nodded. The monk smiled. "Does it run across the sky, trying to warm every corner?" Howard said, "No, it stays still." The monk replied, "Because it stays still, the whole world is warmed." From that day, Howard focused on one thing, creating a healing tea made from local herbs. He poured his whole heart into it, and soon his blend became loved throughout the region. He understood that when energy focuses, the universe opens the way. Marjorie and Howard later met at a village fair. As they spoke, they both laughed, realizing they had walked the same road from scattered to centered. She said, "I used to think happiness came from doing many things. Now I know it comes from being fully in one." He answered, "Yes, when we stand still at one point, the universe moves around us." Practice this each morning. Sit in silence for 1 minute, breathe deeply, and ask yourself, what is the most important thing today? Choose one task and give it your full energy. As you work, don't think of results, don't chase ahead. Each time you feel distracted, return to your breath and remind yourself, focus is my strength. Day by day, you will feel your energy no longer scattering, but flowing in one bright, powerful stream. Imagine your mind as sunlight. When it is spread wide, it only warms. When it gathers, it burns, creating true power. People often say they want success, yet few stop long enough to focus. Success is not about running faster. It is about pausing in the right place. When you reach that still point, everything begins to orbit around you, like planets around the Sunday. Marjorie eventually opened a small gallery. It wasn't large, but it was full of light. People came not just to see her paintings, but to feel the peace within them. They said each work reflected a quiet part of their own hearts. She smiled, knowing she no longer sought miracles outside herself, for the true magic had already risen within, where wind and fire meet in stillness. If you are here reading this, pause for a moment. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, where is my energy going? What field am I watering? Are you running in 10 directions or standing still so the universe can find you? When you learn to be still, the world begins to move. Hold this phrase in your heart or write it down. I am focused. Because the moment you choose stillness, the universe chooses you, the fire of emotion. In a small garden at the end of a quiet street lived a woman named Opal. Every morning she sat by the window and read aloud positive affirmations she had gathered from books. I am happy. I am wealthy. I am loved. She repeated them hundreds of times in a flat tone, like a student memorizing lines, yet nothing changed. Her work remained stagnant, her relationships distant, and each night she asked herself, why don't the words work? She did not know that words have no power when the heart is silent. One evening, as rain softly fell outside, she sat reading her affirmations again. Suddenly she began to cry. The words, I am happy, echoed through the air with irony, because she felt no happiness at all. Through her tears, she whispered, if I don't feel it, am I lying to the universe? And from the quiet within came a gentle thought, don't say, feel. The next morning, she tried something new. She didn't recite the phrases as before. Instead, she closed her eyes, placed a hand on her chest, breathed deeply, and said only one sentence, I am grateful for this breath. As she spoke, warmth spread beneath her palm. A small spark of peace flickered in her heart. She held it for a moment and smiled. It was a tiny shift, but in that instant she realized that emotion is the soul of every word. In the same town lived a man named Franklin. He had read dozens of books on the law of attraction, memorized every principle, yet nothing in his life changed. He said, "I am successful, I am strong," but deep inside another voice replied, "No, you are not." One day, passing a flower shop, he saw a boy watering a small plant and saying softly, "Grow well, little one." Franklin asked, "Do you think the plant can hear you?" The boy answered, "If I speak with my heart, it can." The simplicity of that answer stunned him. That night, Franklin tried his affirmations again, but this time he didn't repeat them mechanically, he lived them. When he said, "I am prosperous," he remembered the joy of receiving his first paycheck, felt abundance flowing through his body. When he said, "I am love," he recalled hugging his elderly mother, his chest warm with tenderness. He no longer recited words, he infused them with emotion. And then, within weeks, his work improved. New clients appeared. Opportunities unfolded naturally. He understood words are the shell, emotion is the soul. The universe does not hear language, it hears vibration. Each emotion you feel sends a signal into the invisible field around you. When you say, "I am happy," but your heart is empty, the vibration is lack of happiness, and life reflects that same tone. But if you genuinely feel joy, even for a moment, that energy multiplies 1,000-fold, drawing more of its kind toward you. Emotion is the fire that turns thought into reality. Opal understood this. She stopped reading long lists of affirmations every morning. Instead, she chose one sentence, spoke it slowly, felt it deeply, until her whole being vibrated like a string struck in perfect tune. She discovered that when her heart ignited, life began to move. Clients returned. Old friends reached out, and her body, once tired for years, seemed to awaken with new vitality. Practice this. Choose one affirmation you love. Don't rush to say it. Breathe deeply, place your hand on your heart, and close your eyes. When you speak, feel each word entering your blood like light. Let it touch you. If you say, "I am peaceful," imagine waves of calm spreading from your chest. If you say, "I am abundant," feel gratitude rising gently in your belly. Repeat until you are no longer speaking with your mouth, but with your energy. In that moment, you are no longer saying the affirmation, you are becoming it. Emotion is not the enemy of reason, it is the flame that warms wisdom. A person without emotion is like one holding a torch, but forgetting to light its shape without glow. Let emotion guide your thoughts, for it is the language the universe truly understands. Opal says that now each morning she speaks only one sentence, "I feel alive." And miraculously, life began to live with her. Everything turned vivid, the song of birds, the scent of coffee, the sunlight on her roof. She understood that when her heart burns bright, the world shines too. Franklin teaches his students the same lesson. Emotion is the soul of miracles. Without it, every word is just an echo in an empty room. If you are here reading this, pause for a moment, take a deep breath, close your eyes, and choose one emotion to send out today, joy, peace, or gratitude. Hold it in your heart and let it flow with every breath. When you do, you are not just changing how you feel, you are rewriting reality. Keep this in your heart or right below "I feel" with my heart. Because the moment you feel, the inner fire is lit and the world begins to listen to you in the language of vibration.